Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning for our second ever Wednesday webinar. This is Kahoot 101. We're going to look at how to create and host a Kahoot. We're going to talk a little bit about reporting, but then we're going to also focus on how you can use this in your trainings and meetings by creating effective presentations through Kahoot. I am your host today. My name is Zainab, and I am a customer success manager. I may already be working with a lot of you, and I have my team member, Galilea, with us, who's also part of the customer success team, and she will be answering all of your questions within the chat. And just to get us started and making sure everyone's ready and well caffeinated, how fast can you type Kahoot? Ooh, pretty fast. Those are some fast moving answer numbers. 25 people already. "37 people typed Kahoot really fast. And the fastest of them all is Luke, closely followed by Madeline. So this is your leaderboard. We'll see how it switches over time. But one of the things to notice about the scores, the person that answers the fastest, even though 37 people were correct, the fastest people get higher scores. So that's an added layer of competitiveness with Kahoot. And now getting down to business, just want to get an understanding of how well do we know Kahoot within the audience today. Nice. Okay, so we have two people that haven't met Kahoot at all, and we have three best buds, but most of the people fall between I know about it and I know it pretty well. So hopefully by the end of the session, we can move the curve to the right side of the screen or the bottom of the screen where everyone feels like we know Kahoot really, really well. Just to give you an overview, if you guys have heard of South by Southwest, Kahoot was launched in 2013 at South by Southwest EDU. And since then, there have been 300 million games played. 6 billion players were being used in 200 plus countries. So it's a giant community to be a part of. Like 7 billion people on Earth, 6 billion players. Fun numbers. And then 97% of the Fortune 500 also uses Kahoot, in addition to 87% of the top universities. It doesn't mention schools here, but if you have kids and they're currently in school, they've probably used Kahoot, and they probably think you're really cool for using it too. So most of the times Kahoot is used by managers or trainers or content developers. Just want to get an understanding of what your role is within the organization. And that kind of gives us an idea of how you could potentially be using Kahoot, because there are a lot of different applications for it. Ooh, there's like a really big common theme here. Excited to see what that is. Instructional design. Wow. Okay. So a lot of people from instructional design, a lot of trainers, consultants, content developers, project managers. And that makes so much sense because it is very commonly understood that Kahoot is used for training and knowledge sharing and evaluating the knowledge that you have shared. And less commonly understood that it can be used for events and meetings and just hanging out with your team virtually. So we'll talk a little bit about those applications as well, but definitely primarily it's excellent use for training. So when you have access to Kahoot, what you can do is apply this to any learning environment. You could be doing a virtual training, a live training. You could have people in the room or very far away, but they can still participate either as individuals or as part of a team. So there's a lot of collaboration there. The trainings can be live or they can be self-paced. So you can either be all present like we are right now, or you can just send the training out and say, okay, you go through the material, you answer the questions, and we'll look at the reports later. And then you can also use this to boost employee engagement, not just through those trainings, but also other random stuff. Like, for example, at Kahoot, we have Kahoot of the Month. So people in multiple different time zones, different countries around the world, we take the same Kahoot challenge or assignment. And at the end, the podium or the winners are shared. So we're all connected. We know who's usually winning. There's a customer success manager on our EDU side that typically wins all our team Kahoots. I've never won, but I'm still trying. So you can do a lot of interactive sessions. There's detailed analytics and reports available after sessions. Those reports are automatically generated. You can export them into Excel and look at that data. And just overall, it connects you better. I know that a lot of people aren't remote anymore and they're going back to their offices, but you still need activities and things to engage your staff. So it's as much applicable to your in-person engagements as it is to your virtual ones. So for those of you who have interacted with Kahoot before, have you been a player, a host? Have you done both hosting and playing? So it looks like answers aren't popping up anymore, so I'm going to skip the rest of the time, which is another feature that helps you save time if you've received all the answers. Nice. So most people have hosted as well as played. That is fun. So when you're creating a Kahoot and you're launching into, how do we engage people? You have to first make a decision of what kind of engagement you want. Are you trying to test their knowledge, or are you trying to gather opinions and just have, a brainstorming session, talk about things? So we have 8 different question types. The first 4 are meant for testing knowledge. So you can have a multiple choice quiz, a true or false. You can have them type out an answer or rearrange the process or chronological order, or, greater versus smaller type question with the puzzle type question. And then when you're looking to collect opinions, you can have a poll. We've done a few already on this Kahoot. You can ask them to type in like we did with the role question. So everyone can put in their answers and you see a word cloud of what people said. If you want more content, like you want them to write a little bit more about what they're thinking, then you do an open-ended question because it has 250 characters as opposed to the 20 characters that the word cloud has. And then my personal favorite, and I've highlighted here at the bottom, is brainstorm, because it essentially just combines the value of all 3 of these. You can ask people to write in and they can share their ideas. They can share more than one. You can ask for up to 3 responses. And then because with open-ended and word cloud, you don't get a number on, oh, here's the most popular idea. So with brainstorm, it's going to get you that poll functionality as well, because once you get those ideas, you see them on the screen and then you can go ahead and start voting on them. So people can vote and then you'll see the top 3 ideas. So very, very engaging. I love it. Definitely recommend using it for your next team huddle or even at the end of a training or presentation to get people engaged. But the first decision is, how are you wanting to engage them? Do you want to test their knowledge? Because all of these will have a right or wrong answer, and they will go ahead and engage the staff with points. And then all of these are just opinion collection. So if you just want to hear them out, this is what you're going to use. And then other than engaging people, you're also wanting to present some knowledge in most trainings or presentations or meetings. So how are you going to do that? You can present through the slides that are available within Kahoot. So we have PowerPoint style templates and layouts available that you can use for putting your content and just building your entire presentation within Kahoot. But if you already have pre-existing material, like most organizations do, their training material is already developed, you can go ahead and import that into Kahoot, and we'll take a look at how both of those things are done. So this is showtime. We're going to go ahead and look at an actual demo of how Kahoot functions. So just let me know with a raise of hands. You can use the reactions or just mention it in the chat, but you can see my switched window, right? So we're on the dashboard for Kahoot now. So when you land on your dashboard, you get a little bit of your basic information on what your plan is and what courses or Kahoots you have available in your account. But then what you want to do is either look at the content that's already available within the Discover tab, which is amazing for first-time content creators because there is a ton of inspiration available over here. A lot of Kahoots that have been made by users like you and I, and they decided to make it public, or created by our premium partners like Disney, Marvel, Microsoft. The subjects on which these Kahoots have been made they range to everywhere, like from north to south. So you can just go ahead and search for anything in here and filter it down by, business users or social users, and play a lot of different content that's available here to get you inspiration on what kind of question types are being used, what kind of media is being used. And once you're ready with that inspiration in mind, you can go ahead and hit the create button, which is always available regardless of where you are in the app, here in the top right corner. At some point in our Wednesday webinars, we'll talk about courses, but today we'll focus on creating a Kahoot. So once you start, you can either pick one of the templates that already exist. So if you're, wanting to build a new hire training, or if you're wanting to build a virtual training quiz, you can just start off with what's available over here. I'll go ahead and start off with, a blank slate for now. And because we recently launched themes, we want to highlight them, make sure that you know that they're available. And also it's probably the first thing you want to decide on using. So within the Kahoot right now, you're in my Kahoot, you're probably able to see that nice background that has this light blue skyscraper image. So that's one of the professional themes that we have available. So the first thing to do is make a decision on what's the background, what is the base of all of your visual imagery. So you can pick from one of the themes that are already available. If you're doing like a theme event, a fun Kahoot, a social happy hour, something like that, you could pick from one of our festive themes. So there's a lot of material available here depending on what subscription level you're on. You can also build your own. So you can go ahead and create a theme and save it and standardize it across the org. But themes are generally the first step. And then when you're building a presentation, I recommend starting off with an opening slide. So introducing yourself, you can either build it out within Kahoot. So I can say, oh, there you go. So it's my first slide. It's going to talk about the introduction over here. And I want that introduction to be an image. Now, it can be one of the integrations like Getty Images or Giphy. We can use that to search for any term and make that our opening image. So I'm going to go ahead and search for Kahoot. There you go. So that is my opening slide. When you preview or when you're actually playing the game, you don't see the grays in the side. That's always the feedback that I get. Why is it gray? So it's not going to be gray when you run it. So you can decide if you want the theme to be applied here or change the background, but you start off with a slide, open it up, start talking to people, change the media if you want. You can add a video in here from YouTube or Vimeo. You can have text that is going to be read out loud by our system, and it can actually be live translated into a different language. So a ton of options available for how you want to use media, or you can just upload it from your computer. So one of your existing images. If you have presentation material already created, you just go ahead and instead of adding a slide, you import those slides from your computer. So you can upload a PowerPoint, a Keynote, or a PDF, and it's going to be imported into the system and you can move those slides around. So I'll go ahead and add slides, import slides. And then what do I want to pick? I want to pick my slide import sample. And then once I'm able to locate what my import sample file is, it's going to start working on creating an image of each one of those slides. So once they're in here, they're not editable slides, they're images of themselves. So if you had transitions or music or even GIFs, they're not going to work anymore. They're going to be a flat image, but it's a really high quality image. So it's good content. If you want to make changes to it, however, you're going to have to go back to your PowerPoint and then make changes there, import the slides again. So I'm going to look at my imported slides This is what they look like. If I zoom into my screen, there's no pixelation. So the import is pretty good quality. I can then decide to, okay, I'm going to move this here, then I'm going to have a question, then I'm going to have this slide. So you can change the order in which they exist. At the very beginning, I always recommend having a couple of questions. They can be very simple things, like when I asked how fast you can type Kahoot. It just gets everybody ready. It gets everybody starting to use the platform. They get comfortable. They know a question can pop up randomly at any time. So when you're in a training session, it keeps everyone on their toes and it keeps them paying attention. They generally take better notes. We've had clients tell us that when we have questions sprinkled throughout the training or sprinkled throughout the meeting presentation that they've created, they end up having more engagement from the staff versus when they're just presenting and then maybe having a verbal periodic, like, hey, do you get it? Hey, was this, did you understand it? So just having that built into the system makes a lot of difference. So I can go ahead and either pick a quiz type question or a true and false, and you'll see that the layout automatically changes. I can have them type their answer out. I can decide how long they have in order to type the answer out, or I can choose a puzzle type question. For example, what's the process for ABC? And then you can say, okay, here's what the process is in real life. And then when it appears to the staff or the players, it's going to be all jumbled up. They'll need to rearrange it. So those are questions that have points associated with them. There is a concept of a right versus wrong answer. So now only V is the correct answer, or it can be, multiple answers can be correct. So I can choose more than one. But as you decide how you want to pose the question, the answer types or the layout will change automatically. We try to make it as easy as possible. You can decide if it's going to be standard points, which is 1,000, or double points, which is 2,000. And as we experienced at the start of this game, the faster you answer, the more points you earn. So the points are going to decrease linearly over time. The more time that passes, even if your answer is correct, your score will be lesser as compared to someone who answered super fast. So that's an added layer of competitiveness and keeping people engaged and wanting to see their name on the scoreboard. You can also choose to have no points at all. So if it's just a question that you want to pose, but it's not something that counts against their points, you can choose to turn off the points. If your presentation or your overall engagement doesn't have points, you won't see the scoreboard until there's a question that has the concept of points associated with it. I can also switch over and say, okay, I want to ask people for their opinions. And then maybe I'm asking them, what is the best layout for this new product page or this website? Something that I'm trying to get a design feedback, or I'm trying to get architectural feedback. It could be, literally anything. So it doesn't always have to be words. You can also just go ahead and select an image. And again, you can use our Getty Images library like this, or you can go ahead and upload that image from your computer to put in the options that you want to poll on. You can again do word cloud or open-ended if you wanted to have people type in their responses instead of you giving them options. And then with brainstorm, you can pose the question and then tell the system, okay, I'm going to give everybody 1 minute to type out up to 3 responses. And once you get those responses, once people start giving in their ideas, you can go ahead and start discussing the ideas on the screen. So it appears like sticky notes on a whiteboard, and you can move those sticky notes around. You can combine them together. The system does have a certain level of its own AI, so it brings similar words together. But then in order to kind of understand, okay, how many people are talking about the same thing, you can combine those different cards together. And if you just wanted to have a discussion, that's great. You've talked through these ideas, you can highlight them, go through the screen. But if you also wanted to make a final decision of what the top ideas are, you can start voting. Everybody will see those cards on their screen, and they can either give it a star or withhold a star. So if you give it a star, you're voting for it, but you're not going to run out of stars because every idea is going to turn up with its own option to give a star or withhold it. And immediately the system quantifies the results and shows you what the gold, silver, and bronze ideas were. So those were our 8 basic question types. The last option is to add slides or import slides. And that's how you're doing your building out your presentation or your training material. It could be an actual training session with all of the learning content in there, or it could be a meeting where you need to present, let's say, last month's performance. It could be a collaborative check-in with the team. It could be a town hall. It could be a client presentation where you're making a proposal, or I know of a lot of credit unions that are using this for teaching their clients about IRAs or mortgages. I know of a lot of hardware businesses that are showing material and content to their clients by, it's during COVID, people couldn't go into their design studios, so they're using Kahoot for an engaging platform where they show the designs and have people pick the options within Kahoot. And then you see all of that data in reports, because everything that the users put in, you can pull those out of those options, those inputs out of the reports afterward. So you've built your Kahoot, you have your questions in there, you have your presentation or slide material in there. You can go ahead and save it. If you haven't completed a slide, or if you haven't selected the answer to a question, anything that needs to be done, it will tell you. So it does do a good job of doing a little bit of QA for you. But also, once you've corrected those issues, I'll just go ahead and remove this one. Once you've corrected those issues, you can give it a name and test it out. So this test Kahoot feature, I highly recommend for all new users. It's going to show you the mobile version as well as the browser version on the same screen. So definitely use this. It is super helpful. The next thing that happens, once you've played a Kahoot, once you've created a Kahoot and you've saved it, you can go ahead and play it. You can play it either live, like we are doing right now. So all of us are present and we're going to be able to engage in real time. But you can also just assign it, which means that people don't need to be doing this at the same time. You can go ahead and set a deadline, or you can just leave it open. Usually it helps to set a deadline. So I'm telling everyone they need to finish this by March 29th at the end of the business day at 5 p.m. And this is going to be whatever time zone I'm in. And then I can keep the question timer turned on. Player identifier is when you have them enter either an email address or employee ID, whatever you choose at the backend settings, to make sure that you understand who it is. Because in a lot of trainings, you probably want to track their performance. But if everyone's just typing in their name, what if there are 2 Brians, or what if there are 2 Zainabs or 2 Galileas? How are you going to know which one was which? So player identifier does a good job of giving you the identity at the back end, but people can still have their nickname in the front end. Or you can turn on the nickname generator, which comes up with the funniest names for people, and they don't even have to type in a display name. Once you create an assignment, it looks very much like all of the other reports in the system. So you have the ability to add learners. You can take this link and share it within your internal platforms like email or MS Teams or Slack, wherever you communicate with your staff. Or you can assign it through email by copy pasting a bunch of email addresses or importing email addresses from an Excel file. Once you have added those learners, I'll go ahead and really quickly I'm going to use the suggested email instead of making any changes, but you can't customize it. You can send an email to yourself. I will just really quickly send it to one learner so that we know what that looks like. So this person's been invited, they haven't started yet. If I go in there, 2 days before the deadline and they still haven't started, I can remind them, or I can send a reminder to everybody. When the session or challenge or assignment ends, you can see what the podium is over here. Right now, you have the ability to change the deadline, end the assignment right now, or play this Kahoot yourself. But once it ends, this is going to be switched over to viewing the podium, and you can view it, but also share it with your team members to share across the team who won or who was in the top 5 positions. Other than playing this in an assigned version or a self-paced version where everyone can do it whenever they have the time for it. You can also go ahead and host Kahoots in a live setting, like I mentioned. So when you start the game, when you're wanting to host it live, you have two options. You can either start it in classic mode, which is what we've done right now. So everyone's joined in one-on-one, each man for himself. Whatever you do, you earn points. You see your name change positions on the scoreboard. But you could also do it in team mode, which means that you, depending on what account you're on, you have the ability to add 5, 10, or 100 teams. And then you can go ahead and let people join these different teams. As the host, you can rename those teams or delete them. As participants, they can also name the teams, choose which team they want to be a part of, move around from one team or another before the game starts. You can also move people around. The fun thing about the team mode is that when people answer questions, they're on their own devices, in their own spaces, all remote. But when they answer those questions, the name on the leaderboard or the podium is going to be the team name, because the team score is an exact aggregate of their individual scores. So it's a little bit of extra collaboration. So now you're part of a team, and also it avoids podium shyness. So if you have 5 teams, all 5 names are always going to be on the screen. So whatever you do, you are making a difference in the performance of the team, and you are pushing people along from your team along from one position to another. So it increases engagement from start till end. So definitely something that I would recommend that you guys try out. We've already looked at presentations and trainings within Kahoot. The other way of doing this is going into your PowerPoint account and bringing Kahoot in there. Now, we've talked a lot about what kind of questions you can add, how you can engage people through those different question types, how you can make your training more interesting by peppering it with different questions. But it really just depends on the trainer themselves or the meeting host themselves, how they want to engage their staff. So some people prefer to have those questions every 2 or 3 slides, every 5 or 10 minutes. But there may be trainers or managers or presenters who would rather have a bunch of questions at the start or just have a bunch of questions at the end. Or it may be that they prefer using their PowerPoint presentations. They prefer using the transitions and the graphics and the material the way it's already been made. In the latter situation, in the situation where you prefer to use PowerPoint as your main tool, or in the situation where all of your questions are going to be collected in one point, either at the beginning or the middle or the end, for those situations, we've created our PowerPoint integration. So instead of bringing your slides into Kahoot, you can take Kahoot and embed it in a slide within your PowerPoint. So if you don't already have Kahoot integrated, what you would do is go into your PowerPoint. I'm on my Web 365 version, but the same steps apply when you're on your desktop version. You go into PowerPoint, you go into Insert. Let's imagine I have like 10 slides here and I'm on slide number 10. I could have a lot of slides. So I'm on this slide. This is where I want Kahoot to live. So I go into Insert, and on Insert, I want to pick add-ins. And it may be that I have an office administrator that doesn't let me have access to the store. So I might just have the admin managed add-ins available, the ones that have been approved for my organization. In that case, you want to reach out to your IT team and ask them to add Kahoot for you. But if you don't have restrictions like that, you can just go into the store and search for Kahoot, and that's going to pull up our add-on. I'm going to select it, accept the terms and conditions. And what it does is it brings Kahoot into your PowerPoint slide. So I can go ahead and say, okay, so this is my Kahoot account. I'm already logged in on this browser, so it's not asking me to sign in. But if you're not logged in, it's going to ask you to sign in and select your account. And then it wants you to add in the Kahoot link. How do you get that? You go back to your Kahoot account, you select share on the actual Kahoot that you want to embed, and you click on this little PowerPoint icon, and the link has been copied. You go ahead and paste it here, and you add that Kahoot to this PowerPoint. And I'm not making this look visually appealing, so I'll change that. So you can arrange this, organize this. This can now live inside of your PowerPoint. You can change the Kahoot, but when you get in here, when you're going through your present mode and you get to this slide, you can actually just start the game. So you are presenting, you're going through your slide, you're going next, 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 and on one slide, your Kahoot game lives there. And you start presenting, everybody joins in the way that we just joined in on our live game at the start of this session. And when people join in, you can play the game all embedded inside that slide. When the game ends and the podium runs and you hit next in your PowerPoint, you're still back in your presentation, you can move on. So this can be embedded anywhere in the presentation. It could be in the start, in the middle, wherever you want to ask questions. Just the recommendation here is that if you want your questions to be peppered throughout the presentation, then you probably want to take it into Kahoot because it's easier. You're already logged in, the game, slides are moving along, questions are popping up, people don't have to join again and again. When you're in PowerPoint as your main tool, then people have to join the Kahoot game to answer those questions. So that Kahoot game is living in one slide. So it just depends on the way in which you want to engage your audience. But for everyone that likes using PowerPoint as their main tool, this is definitely a really good solution. So I have about 2 more minutes, and then we can open the floor up for conversation and address any other questions that you have. The last thing I want to show you before we open up the floor is the reports tab. So you play a Kahoot, and if you're an admin, you'll see the reports for everything in the account, but in general, you'll see the reports for stuff that you've hosted. And it's broken down into all of these different segments. So you can look at reports for live games versus assignments. And if you have courses, you can see reports for those. If you have player identifier turned on, like we did today, you added in your email addresses when you were signing in. This tab will show you a combination of live games and assignments, whatever the player identifier was turned on. And then in a lot of cases, when you're doing trainings, it's not a single session. So you may be playing 3 or 4 different Kahoots in one new hire onboarding training session, or one training that was modular, had 2 or 3 different modules that people had to go through. And you want to see the results for the overall training sessions instead of the individual ones. In those cases, you can go ahead and select the different reports and combine them. I would suggest combining them based on player identifier if you have that turned on. Otherwise, you can do it by nickname so that people's results can be combined together. And once you hit next, you can rename, because it's creating a new report now. So you can rename it or give it a new name. It's going to pop up in the combined reports tab. And now it's going to give you a combined podium from across those different games. So we call it creating a tournament. So let's imagine your new hire training had 5 days and people played 5 different Kahoots every day, and there were individual winners every day. But at the end, you want to see a collective result of who did the best throughout the training. So you can combine those reports and see a brand new podium with the final winners of the first, second, and third position. If I stay within my live reports, now to make it easier, we have kept the visuals on all the reports the same. So they're very easy to read. They all read the same way. So I can look at any one of these reports. I'm going to go ahead and look at, for example, this one. So this game was played by 5 participants. So I had 5 players. It has 15 questions. The session ran for 14 minutes. This was a difficult question. So any question that was answered less than 50% correctly pops up here. So really good for trainers to be able to say, okay, well, this question didn't do so well. You can look at individual player cards. So performance cards for individual players. And you can look at questions on how they're doing. So I can go in here and I can say, okay, so what did Zainab do during the training? These are the answers that Zainab provided. Here's the input that she gave on her quiz. Here's the input that she gave on the brainstorms. These are the ideas that she typed in with hand. So everything that a player does during the game is recorded. So you can look at it by player, or you can look at it by question. For example, if you're doing a brainstorm type question, people are typing in their ideas. You don't have to take notes or refer back to the training recording. You can just go in here and see, okay, I asked them for opinions here. What were the opinions? And you can see the idea and who gave the idea. So all of the entries are recorded. Don't have to take notes, don't have to go around the table hearing everyone out individually. Saves a lot of time and gets people to engage, but also just do it very efficiently. At this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, open up the floor for questions. I know Gally's been answering a bunch of your questions in chat, but feel free to ask questions through audio now. So if you raise your hands or just, start speaking, we can go ahead and have a little bit of chat before we end the session for today.
Hello, ladies. This is JJ. I have a quick question. So we deal with automobile dealerships around the nation, and I'm looking out on your library and I see that some of those dealerships have their own little Kahoots. Would it be possible, I know that I asked about the integration into LMS systems and things like that, but is there a limitation on licensure and things like that, like how many people can actually get into a Kahoot session and things like that, or how does that all tie in for the number of people that can actually join that particular Kahoot?
That's a really good question. Also, I love your display picture. That
Oh, I'm Zen Dog.
Yeah, the Zen Dog is amazing.
Thank you.
With the dealerships, okay, so it depends on the plan that you're on. You can have up to 2,000 participants in a live Kahoot session, and that's the highest that we offer for a live game. With challenges or assignments, and I use both languages because they used to be called challenges, now they're assignments, but they're self-paced Kahoots. They can have 2,000 participants in one assignment, but you can create multiple assignments at the same time.
Okay,
more than
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, the assignments are definitely what I'm thinking of. So awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Mr. Zendog. We love it.
I look at those crisscross legs and remember the childhood era when I could actually do it. Also, you mentioned LMS, so I'm sure Gally's already mentioned, but for anybody that's thinking about integrations in LMS, we're working on the REST API to be launched sometime later this year, and that should enable your IT teams to build a connector with any LMS that you're currently working on, or even another, like even if it's not an LMS, with like a Power BI or another business intelligence tool that helps you look at the results and combine data from different sources.
Zainab, I also wanted to bring up that we were talking about, there was a question just a while ago about asynchronous Kahoots, i.e. the challenges/assignments, and how they can be able to be open for play, or if they have to be specifically assigned to people. So Chuck was sharing some insight here about how they create Kahoots without requiring players to enter their email address, and then they just share the game pin so that it can be open. But I don't know if you maybe want to expand on how maybe potentially challenges could be done without necessarily assigning it to people. It is kind of a gray area, but I thought it was a good point of conversation.
Yeah, so in those cases, you don't want to assign learners, but if I just hop back into my screen share, which I was going to do anyways, because I want to end with my Kahoot. So if you're doing challenges, you've created that assignment and now you want people to join in, but instead of inviting people to join that through email, you can just create that challenge and then go ahead and copy the link for it. So you go to add learners, you copy this link and you put it in a shared space, and anyone that has that link can join in. If you have player identifier turned on, they will still need to put in their email to get in, so you'll know who it is. But anywhere from 0 to 2,000 players, people will continue to get in. Player number 2001 will see a message that this challenge or assignment has ended, and a podium has already been generated, and they'll be able to see the podium, but they will not be able to join. So in such cases, what you do is you create multiple links and you say, okay, this department uses this link, this department uses this link, but it's open, it's living there, and there's no need to send it to specific people.
Thank you. And then Chuck, I see you raising your hand. Please, yes, feel free to take the floor.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, we created multiple Kahoots, and we didn't want to have people put their email addresses in. So we wanted to track their progress somehow. So what we did is we created random codes with Excel, and we assigned those email addresses to those codes. And then when we ran the Kahoots, we had people type in their code as opposed to some random name they picked.
Yeah.
And so the people who were actually reviewing the reports only saw the codes. They didn't see the people's email addresses. So there was nobody who could tie the codes and the emails to each other. So
Nice.
You can't say that John Smith said these answers. You can just say this code said these answers, but we could track it that way so that the same person or the same code hit multiple different Kahoot challenges, so we could aggregate them all up. That's another method we'd used.
That is a very, very interesting way of making sure that it stays anonymous, but also they're able to do different challenges. And that's exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking about when I say it's great to have you all in conversations here, because we end up learning new stuff.
Jade, I see you have your hand up as well. Please feel free.
Hi, yes, how's everyone today?
Good, good. Thank you.
Good. So I have a question. I know, Galia, we had a few different conversations where we were trying to figure out the best way where we can use the materials we already created for training to embed those into Kahoot. I did see that Chuck, I'm not sure if he can provide a little bit more insight to his question on Storyline, but that's definitely was one of our top learning management systems, but we were not able to figure out how to have those created materials added into Kahoot. Is there a way we can possibly, I don't know if we can connect outside of this, Chuck Campbell, or if Galia or Zanab, if you guys can give us like an outline based on how Chuck was able to do that, because I think that would take us to the next level in using materials we already had instead of recreating the materials we have.
Chuck, if it sounds good to you, I can connect both of you through email outside of the session so you guys can have that discussion.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll actually post my email in the chat. So because I mean, it was kind of interesting to do it, but it works pretty well. And I'm surprised how well it works. The only challenge we have is that we have to make sure that we deactivate the module in the learning management system before we close out the Kahoot challenge, or somebody will click a dead link, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, I'll put in my email address in the chat.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much. You will be hearing, so I work for a personal loan company, Rocket Loans. You will be hearing from us by sometime end of the day.
Nice. And then, guys, we also have a LinkedIn community. We'll go ahead and include the link for that in our follow-up email after the session when we send you the recording. And that also is a great space to connect with other Kahoot users and do exactly this. Just learn from each other on how we're using Kahoot in different businesses, in different environments. So definitely get in the group on the LinkedIn space and share your ideas, because I think there are times when even people who made a certain feature didn't think of how it was going to end up being used. Within our Kahoot, I'm just going to bring it towards closing now. So this is a double points question, very relevant to what we're just talking about. What is a self-paced Kahoot called? And we mentioned it like a couple of times just now. We kind of cheated. Self-paced Kahoots are called assignments or challenges. You can also review answers when you have people type in. So you can now say, okay, asynchronous is also correct. And I just love this. I'll just, pick this and give them points. So that just shows you still have the choice to pick more answers. And the podium changed. We're going towards the podium now. So we're gonna have a couple of questions that show you the scoreboard. Another quiz question here for double points. When creating a Kahoot, how can you make sure that it's super engaging? You can mix up question types such as true, false, quiz, poll, and slides. You can add imagery or videos. You can change the time limit or number of points depending on the type of question that you're using, or you can make players use their real name when playing. Nice. So a lot of people said you can mix up questions, but the way that this question type was designed, you had multiple correct answers. So everyone that picked any one of these three gets points. I am so glad no one picked this. This is just a quote that we'd like to share. So the president and CEO of Goodwill, Kimberly Lewis, says that Kahoot keeps everyone focused and actively challenges everyone. Everyone is more engaged with the content and competing at the same time. It ramps up both knowledge, retention, and fun. Just loved hearing that. We've already opened the floor for questions, so I'm going to move along and ask our feedback questions for the very end. So we've come towards the very end of the webinar. How are you feeling about how do you know Kahoot now as compared to before the webinar? The investment of 51 minutes that you've made so far, what has it reached? And then as you're answering this, so you notice what I did there. I went into, I started a Kahoot, but then I jumped out of the Kahoot window. I went into my browser to do a live demo. And then I stopped completely. You just sat there, chatted for a while, and then I went back into my Kahoot. Once you start a Kahoot, you're not stuck with it. You can still move around your computer. You can still move around your conversation. You don't have to like strictly follow what's on the next slide. The Kahoot stays active, it stays open. There aren't a lot of timeout issues unless there's a bad internet connection and you're using the mobile app. If there's a bad internet connection, or if your screen dims out, or your mobile device goes to sleep, then sometimes you are kicked out of the game. It, in most cases, will pop up a little model and it'll ask you to reconnect. And in most cases, you're able to reconnect very easily. But generally, there aren't a lot of timeout issues if you're on the browser or have a good internet connection with your mobile app. So you're not stuck with the Kahoot game. You can jump out of it. You can use different apps. You can share your screen. You can still have a chat. So 2 people said that their information level is just the same before the webinar, which is sad. I'm sorry. 49% of the participants feel better, 13% feel slightly better, and 33% feel a lot better, which makes me feel a lot better. Do share your feedback in terms of what we can do to improve these ongoing sessions or different topics that you'd like to see moving forward. And then whatever was one key takeaway from today's session, something that maybe you didn't know before, something new that you learned, a new idea that you got, any one key takeaway from today's session would be awesome. We'd love to hear it. I see questions about recording in the chat. We will send you a follow-up email and it will have a link to the recording. So you guys can watch this. The link is shareable, so you can actually share this with other team members that weren't able to join today. Andrea just asked if there's a way to integrate Kahoot with Zoom. Yes, there is. We have a Zoom app. There's apps that are available within Zoom. And if you want, we can actually do a webinar on that. But also after the session, Andrea, I will go ahead and send you a link on how that integration works, because we have a blog explaining that integration. There isn't a WebEx integration right now, Madeline, but it's definitely on our radar. We know that a lot of people use WebEx, so we'll eventually get there. There is a Teams integration, an MS Teams integration, and I see Gally posted the link for the Zoom integration for Andrea. So Gally, could you also put in a Teams integration link for Michelle? The MS Teams integration is pretty awesome. It works really well. Sean, that sounds great. So we're still planning out what our next few webinars are going to be about. We do want to focus on a different integration each time. The basics are always going to be the same, of course, you know, how Kahoot is created and hosted, but we want to show additional features. We can definitely do one on Zoom. So 28 answers submitted. Oh, wait. I want to show the answers. So what were the key takeaways? So someone said that challenges, asynchronous games, they didn't know about that. How to add PowerPoint is a key takeaway. That sounds wonderful. There's an add-on for PPT. That's great. Okay. I am so glad that you guys learned something new about PowerPoint. We'll go ahead and make sure that we're showcasing new features every time. Okay, everyone, happy Kahooting? Here is the podium. Let's see who won. Drea, third position. Kelly H, second position. And the winner of this Kahoot is Luke. You were in the lead from the very beginning, which is awesome. Runner-ups are St. Paul and Laurelyn. We will reach out to Luke, Kelly, and Drea through email and ask you guys your addresses for where to send your swag.